I'm gonna contend this.
Don't worry about it.
See it.
I know it's a bullet. I can see that.
This is what the tracks are.
Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And
to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ask people to stay standing for a moment of silence. There's been a lot of death around the world. Doesn't seem to be slowing down. Okay, thank you. So we move to item D on the agenda, which is a public hearing.
Mr. President, I make a motion to open the public hearing. In section 4246(6)B, council may review, discuss, and or take action on the emergency.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Do we have any questions amongst council?
The applicant's attorney is.
Okay,
John Manson.
okay, so I would like to invite John to come up, introduce himself, and please tell us what you got.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. For the record, John Mancini on behalf of the owner and applicant with respect to the proposed zone change. The applicant is Jordan Carson. The property is located or designated as Plat 4C, Lot 28. It is being requested that the zone change be effectuated to allow for a PT Flex Tech zoning. This application was vented by your planning board. And it was a positive recommendation was provided with a written report to the council. The proposal is to rezone the existing property, which is currently zoned R2 to FT, and change the use regulations in order to permit for racetracks for motorized vehicles within the FT zoning district. The proposal to rezone complies with the intent of the zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan. The rezoning of the lot from R2 to FT, combined with the request to permit racetracks for motorized vehicles, is only within the FT zone. So it's very specific to this particular zone, which is complementary to the overall plan. So if one was to look at the future land use map of your comprehensive plan, you notice that the areas surrounding this property either zoned industrial or they're zoned flex tech. So this is not a situation where the applicant is seeking something that doesn't complement or is not comporting with your existing future land use map or your comp plan. It's actually furthering the continuity of what is existing. So it's sensible and it's certainly compliant with the outlook of the town. The change would be specific also to provide for and implement the opportunity of a motor racetrack and only a motor racetrack. And there was significant discussion with the planning board to clarify definitions with regards to what is being proposed and how it's being proposed. And definitions are always very tricky. So the planning board went to great extent to delineate that, and I believe that that has been properly memorialized in their recommendation to the board. There was also some positive commentary provided at the public hearing with regards to the application. We think that the proposed flex text designation for this R2 zone is also beneficial. Because as it stands now, this residential area kind of sits in the midst of no man's land because it's surrounded by so much industrial area and open space area that when you look within a 200 radius of this property, you don't find residential in it. So it's really residential, doesn't really comport with what is there. With that, I'd be more than happy to address any questions or concerns that the council would have with regards to what we're proposing, why we're proposing it, and how we think that it fits into the greater scheme of the town's development plan.
Thank you. Is there any questions amongst the council?
There's been a number of DEM violations, cease and desist orders, and have any of those actually been fixed?
No. So well, fix is a unique term.
Have they done anything to remediate
Yes,
what they've
that's,
done?
so no. So we're in the process, well, the applicant's been in the process of discussions with DEM. Those violations currently still stand on the property. Yeah. So I actually have the applicant, I'll have him testify in a second, but whatever has been determined as violation from DM, whatever issues remain with DM, those are in dispute, if not completely all in dispute, will continue to be disputed and will continue to be questioned. But that won't have an impact on your zoning because that's outside the jurisdiction of the town. Obviously, as any other property owner and any other landowner in the town, whatever jurisdiction falls on that property with respect to DM is addressed by the applicant and the property owner with DM. We don't think that any DM issues or violations would affect zoning, but I do want the owner to talk about what's there and what he's encountered with respect to DM.
Okay, if you could just step to the podium and introduce yourself.
My name is Jordan Carlson. I'm the landowner of the property that we're talking about.
Thank you.
As far as DEM goes, we've actually not been served with any formal violations at all, and it's been over 1.5 years since we've had any even contact with DEM. And the question and issue would be a boundary issue where the town and me have potentially arisen issues where those wetlands would. We're currently working out, if they arise, the mutually agreeable solution there. But as far as actual violations, I don't even have one single written violation.
Right.
Karen also.
I believe that there is written violation. The DEM has not taken formal legal action against Mr. Carlton. I suspect that's probably because they're short-handed, but they went to Superior Court and got a search warrant to search the property to determine the extent of the wetland violations. And they filed a return on that warrant that indicated there were extensive wetland violations. John is correct when he says that the town does not have the authority to enforce wetlands regulations because we don't. But Mr. Carlson is not going to be able to use this property legally for a motocross track until he not only gets his comprehensive permit amendment and his zoning amendment, but also gets a plan approved by the planning board for his facility. And that is going to require him to submit a stormwater management plan. And I don't think he's going to be able to do that until he addresses some of the wetlands issues that he's got with DEM.
Thank you.
So if I may just add to that, whatever development plan review or whatever, however the town designates or defines what review is going to be done on this, what's important to note is that the applicant doesn't intend to build anything. There would be no structures that are actually going to get built. So whatever disturbance is there, however it's being utilized now is most likely going to continue to be utilized. With regards to a stormwater plan, because the area exceeds an acre, your solicitor is correct, the RIPD's permit would be required. And once we file for the RIPD's permit, that would probably trigger whatever DEM file is on the property. So at one point or another, there's gonna have to be a review with DEM with respect to the operation on the property and how that operation affects jurisdictional wetlands. And that is when we'll engage DEM as to, as Jordan said, the delineation and determination of where the wetlands are, what the buffer is, and how it's affecting us and how it's affecting neighboring properties.
Is,
President,
yeah, I just wanted to ask a question myself. Are these potential violations remediable?
I mean, I don't see any violations. I'm in a gravel bank around like. We have no permeable surface and we haven't cleared anything over an acre. Everything's there how I bought it, so.
That wasn't the question.
Yeah, so
So like word it correctly, like in a way that I can understand it. Sorry.
I guess that's a twofold question. Are these violations or alleged violations repairable or reversible, and are you guys committed to
Well,
doing that?
then that's a good question. But that question really hinges on what the violation is and what it consists of. If it's a wetlands violation, as Jordan said, you have to first determine if there's a wetlands. And if there is a wetlands, you have to then determine whether or not that wetland's been disturbed. If it was previously disturbed, then that will change or affect the effect of the disturbance. So there's a lot in tune to that. To answer your second part of that question, one of the applicants committed to rectifying or remediating any wetlands violations or any violations. That's something any property owner is going to have to do on any.
Right.
I mean, that's a fight between Jordan and the state if he chooses to pick that fight up.
If these violations were there prior to him purchasing the property, I don't know how he can be held responsible for those violations.
That's not the issue.
Yeah, I don't
I
know
plan to
exactly.
use every ability in Superior Court all the way to Supreme Court to argue the fact that I don't have any wetlands. So there's never been a biological survey of my property. There is no other than man-made wetlands that we've already created. Like there's nothing there that was ever a naturally protected wetland. It's a matter of neighboring drainage that's created undisturbed property that had overgrown. There since I've been in there, I haven't really done much other than maintain what was there. There was road systems connecting the town dump to my property. There was gravel roads surrounding the entire thing. We haven't gone in there and clear cut trees, but we've been using the property for 5 years in the same exact manner. I plan to exhaust every resource I have to appeal because I don't, and as an American, I have every right to exhaust that I'm not guilty of doing anything wrong on my property. So until I've had my day in court, that's not really something that I can argue here because it's not really pertinent because.
Okay, yeah, I mean, this is actually a hearing for zoning change, not
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
entire.
Not my guilt.
And-
Wetlands violation.
And to appease, to alleviate any concerns that the council has, I mean, as you are aware, this just permits the use. Aside from that, the applicant still has to abide by your current zoning ordinances and specifically section 18.49, which talks about flex tech development, as well as the other regulations that are going to be applicable, any other state regulations. So nothing done here circumvents other regulations or supersedes any other regulations. What we're asking for solely here is to rezone it from R2 to flex text that allows his current use to be a permissible legal use.
President,
Okay, first, Rich, and then
So,
Counselor.
so here's my concern is that the property owner went in and made changes to the land, right? And those changes were then cited by DEM for whatever violation they have, whether it's written or not. They've made an announcement of it. So my concern is that we're just going to allow somebody to come in, make changes to the land, disturb the natural environment of that property, and then turn around and go, well, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna fight this because I don't think that's right. And then we are, as a council, are going to go, oh, we're gonna roll over and say, okay, well, we'll change the zoning for you so that you can put this in that piece of property. Yet you already went above and beyond and broke the law and broke the environmental impact and changed the land. So that I have to, so this council, you're asking this council to make a change so that it's okay for what he did. That's my concern, and that's where my concern lies, is that any property owner then can go in, change the landscape that they have and go, well, I wanted to do this, but DEM steps in and says, well, no, you've disturbed this, you've disturbed that. And then you come to the town and ask the town to make a change to fit your desire. And that's my problem. I'm gonna hold off and say, once DEM is done and you've fixed or remediated whatever problems DEM has deemed a problem, then at that point I would go, okay, then maybe I'll look at it. But then I also have all these homeowners that surround that property. So there's a lot of stuff here. I'm not just gonna roll over and go, okay, I'll give you a zone change, because I'd gladly give you, what's the saying? I'll gladly give you money tomorrow for a burger today. No, there's problems that need to be fixed today before anything goes forward for tomorrow. That's the way that I look at it. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe somebody can correct me, but that's the way I see it.
So, and I understand your point, but here's our position on that. We're not asking for this council to do anything that's respective of the, all that's being asked here is for the zone change. And clearly you can put conditions on that zone change. You have the prerogative to do that in state law. But what you don't have is the ability to usurp DEM's regulations or DEM's jurisdiction over the property. And you cannot do something that would be inconsistent with what DEM's powers are. So whether or not there is a violation on the property, or whether or not there is an issue with DEM, that's irrelevant to the zone change that we're requesting. That is something that the property owner is going to have to work out with the state agency, separate and apart from whatever requirements, obligations the town has in its own ordinances. What we're asking is simply for the town to look at your land use map, your comprehensive plan, your planning board recommendation, and then your zone change. And you make the determination as to whether or not all those things are aligned, comporting with the request. The request is simply to do that, R2 to FT. It's not to use this as a way to circumvent DEM regulations. So your vote tonight doesn't in any way condone any type of violations, whether they exist or don't exist. It doesn't in any way circumvent the applicant, circumvent the existing ordinances, which would require the applicant to either do a minor land development project or development plan, however it's defined in your regulation. That's all stays intact. All you're doing is you're creating the underlying base that permits the use. And then the use gets further delineated and further developed as it goes through the process. So I think it's inequitable to condition one thing on something else when the two things aren't compatible, meaning that you can't condition the zone change on alleged violations from DEM when it's not within the town's jurisdiction to either adjudicate the DEM violations or to enforce the DEM violations. So they're apples and oranges.
Could I
President.
try to
Sure,
clarify
just-
that?
yeah.
John is absolutely correct when he says that the town does not have the authority to enforce DEM violations. But for Mr. Carlson to get the approval that he will need to get from the planning board, he will need to submit a stormwater management plan.
Right.
And he is not going to be able to submit a stormwater management plan until he at least starts his discussions with DEM and determines what kind of remediation is going to be required at that site. Because the permit that John mentioned that his client needs, a refuse permit, is the state equivalent of a stormwater management plan. And planning board would not be able to approve the facility that he wants to put there until his plan is consistent both for the town and for the state.
Does he need a zoning change in order
I
to
do.
do that?
Mr. President, you're supposed to.
Yeah, he does.
And
And
Yeah.
I also
Through the
want to
chair.
remind you that we have a lawsuit pending in Superior Court against Mr. Carlson. And that will remain pending. We won't go forward with it, but it will remain pending until this is resolved.
Mike,
Yeah, this isn't an issue I perceive as putting the cart before the horse here. What they have to do is they have to get the zone changed so that way they know the parameters that they're working with. So that way DEM knows the parameters that they're working with. DEM could actually throw this right back to us and say, we don't know what the parameters are because you're saying that you're going to change it to Flex Tech, but we're looking at it as an R2. So I think the most prudent thing for us to do is to approve his zone change from R2 to Flex Tech. So that way everybody is on board. Everybody's on the same page. Our planning board's on the same page, DM's on the same page, and you know, the town itself is on the same page. Because this gentleman cannot proceed to the next step without first
this,
batting. Getting up to bat, he bats, he's got to run to first base, then second, then third. So this isn't an idea of the cart before the horse.
okay,
Do you, Mr. President, do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Mr. Mancini?
I think that's a very good summation. So this is a multi-step process. So right now, what the applicant is doing is he's doing a motocross race, and there's an issue in Superior Court as to whether or not we do that, whether it's conforming, non-conforming, along with the whatever DEM issues. In order for us to rectify any of that, the first stop on the train is to obtain a zone change. And the zone change in this instance, as I indicated before, is, I don't want to use the word easy because there's nothing that's ever easy, but this one's an easy one because it complies with what's out there. And what I mean by that is you look at the map surrounding the property, residential doesn't fit. And so if we're going to be held to a residential standard in a zone that's predominantly industrial or governmental or open space, it's a bit unfair for the applicant. And that's going to put the applicant in a different position with DEM when he does go and develop the property, when he wants to go develop the property. He has every right to develop the property. If you leave it as is now, it's an R2 zone, he has the right to go and develop in an R2 zone that's in the middle of industrial. It's going to create its own issues. So the proposal is to identify his use, which is what he states he wants to do and what he's been doing, allow it by right under your zoning ordinance as flex tech, which is permitted in section 18.49. And then he then has to go through the process of you know, I don't know what it is anymore. I don't know if it's development plan, the laws change, but whatever it is, it's going to be governed by the planning board process.
sure, go ahead.
So I'm gonna back everything up a little bit. You said you had owned this property for 5 years. How come you didn't come here 5 years ago?
He believed he had an existing non-conforming use.
But why didn't you just come and ask?
Because he
Well,
believed he
just-
hasn't, because he
If I
believed
could
he had a
answer
non-conforming use.
I sent
You
an
just-
email to the town council when I got the property and I asked the police chief as well. I said, is it legal to ride dirt bikes on my property? Of which they all responded yes. I had an email from every single person that was on the council at that time,
On your residential property, sure.
on any property that you own privately.
Okay.
You can ride dirt
But
bikes
then,
on private
but
property.
then this is like exploded into
When people ride it,
a business where you're advertising and you're, you know,
aren't you?
selling, you know, whatever memberships or, you know, race day, whatever's. So it went from a hobby to a business.
It was never a hobby.
Riding a motorcycle on your property is not a hobby.
So whether 50 people ride or two, it changes from a hobby. The hobby sport of
When you,
individuals.
I guess maybe when you charge somebody, it does.
So if you take a donation, it's semantics.
So I'm not gonna get into the,
Exactly.
not gonna get
Yeah,
into.
let's
the-
get
now- we're here now to
But
try
here's
to
the-
do it.
But here's the question is that, you know, if you knew when you started this, you knew that you were going to go here. Why didn't you just come to the council and
I didn't know. I
Yeah,
had
the question is.
So I'm gonna
The
have,
questions is-
I'm gonna have to interrupt everybody.
I'm not trying to be confrontational,
No,
I'm just trying to get
Rich,
the obvious
Rich,
out,
please.
that's all.
So, when I heard about this, when I was elected to the town council, I contacted Jordan and I said, let's do this, excuse me. I said, I met with Jordan and I said, let's do this the right way. Let's follow the rules. Let's go through the steps and let's make this a business. Richmond is notorious for being difficult to do business in. So I said, let's do business. Jordan hired his lawyer, brought his lawyer in, began the process in good faith. What happened in the past is in the past. It was a different council. It was a different day. We're talking about a zoning change that was recommended by our planning board that we make. So what I'd like to do is have a few more questions from the council, not a back and forth. And then I'd like to go to the public to get some public input. And then I'd like to consider voting on it.
If I may, Mr. President, just to make the record clear and to address the councilman's question, because I don't want to leave it unaddressed, it's an important one. As to what happened prior to our application, and I think the council president already said it, but I just want to restate it, is that it's really not relevant whether we came for a zone change 5 years ago or come for a zone change today. It doesn't change your comprehensive plan, your land use, your future land use map, planning board recommendation, and what the proposed zone change is. Now, there may be a disagreement as to what the use is, when the use started, and how it can proceed. But the point of this is to eliminate all those questions in any of those disputes and to put in place the proper mechanisms to allow this to go forward if it's something the town wants. From a zoning perspective, it's completely compliant with what the process is and how it's laid out. So we think it's a fair zone change, a good zone change, one that doesn't require everything.
Mr. President.
Yes.
I commend you for going down the path that you're going, because you took, if somebody wants to say a hobby, and you now bring it to the next level, you're going through all the right channels to make it work. And I commend you for that. You know, there are past businesses that started in people's garages. You have Powerade that started in somebody's garage. They sold it for Coke for $3 billion, but it started in their garage. And that's a lot. Henry Ford built his first Model T in his garage, his first car in the garage. These things happen. So I commend you, all right, to bring it to the next level, going through the right channels. I don't care how you started it 4 or 5 years ago. It doesn't weigh in to what you're doing right now. You're doing the right thing.
I'm here on behalf of a lot of other riders, not just myself.
Sam?
So, Mark, Mr. President,
Yes.
thank you for reaching out to him and, helping, I guess, start that going in the right direction. I know that a candidate who did not win the election did the same thing as canvassing, went there and said, this is how you get it to be legit. I just wanted to send a reminder to everybody and the applicant that this does not make the activities on the premises legal. And I feel like that's spelled out really well in the materials we received.
Yes.
And I was really hoping to go into this as a partnership. Maybe we are putting the cart before the horse, maybe we're not, you need it for DEM, that's fine. But if we're doing this and we're helping you, hearing then the arguments with another counselor that it already is legal business, it's fine the way it is, but right now it's not a legal business. So Powerade it was, Tesla was, whoever else was mentioned was, but right now this isn't. And we want to bring in legal businesses. So I just think
Right.
that perhaps
That's
is
why
the first
I've
step.
been encouraging to go through the steps.
Right, it just sounds like my concern now is maybe the applicant isn't wanting to do that. But I hope that I'm incorrect in misunderstanding that.
Me too.
Mr. President, I think the attorney, Mr. Mancini, has laid out the plan that you're gonna follow.
Maybe I misspoke,
No.
but there's no misconception here. This is
No.
not- This, all we're doing is we're permitting the use.
Right.
We're not, we're not, there are other steps in that process. And we're not saying that we're gonna avoid those steps. We're gonna go through that to comply with what the town's requirements are. But we can't get there unless we go through here first and unless we have the zone change. Without the zone change, we have nothing but going back to arguing what we can argue.
Right, in respect that I understand the process and I understand what they want to do. I just meant that little back and forth made it seem like maybe that wasn't what
Yeah.
the intention was. So it gave me a little bit of pause. That's all I was saying.
That's why I always let my lawyer talk for me.
Smart man.
So that being said, if there's no further questions from the council, I'd like to put the questions out to the public. And if there's anyone who'd like to speak, if they would come up to the podium and identify themselves, and maybe Jordan and his attorney can answer the questions. Is there anyone? Sir.
My name is Kenneth Moden. I live in Richmond. And I didn't catch the plat and lot number that this is going to be assigned to.
29 Buttonwood Road.
It's lot 28, tax assessors plat 4C.
The only other concern I would have would be with respect to sound ordinances and time of use, time of day, amount of sound. That's the only other concern I would have. And how that would be addressed.
I can
Yeah.
answer that question.
Oh, Karen, yes, please.
The sound ordinance does apply to this activity. And Jordan would have to abide by the specific requirements of the sound ordinance, or he would be cited for a violation by the police department.
Is there I'm not familiar with the sound ordinance. What are the time constraints of it? Is there a decibel requirement?
Yes, it is.
as well?
Generally, rule of thumb, I mean, it depends on the zoning district, and please continue, because
I know I have
what's
a
in
copy
the
of it.
ordinance
here
is
someplace.
accurate, and what is in my memory may be 60 usually at night after 10 or 11 p.m., 65 during the day in a residential. Certain industrial areas, it could be 70 at particular times a day.
This would be considered an industrial area, so the decibel limit at all times would be 80 decibels, which is the highest
Is that measured? How far away is that measured
from the property line.
Oh,
Generally, it's in response to a complaint by someone who may be bordering, or, it could be due to wind carrying noise. We would go to that complainant's address, and from a vantage point, without putting a police officer in the middle of a pricker bush with a decibel meter, they would measure the sound from the vicinity of that boundary line, or that property line, from where the noise is emanating from.
right.
I'll be honest, I'm not aware of noise complaints that we've had from the activity that's been occurring there of late. It's something I could certainly check, but
Yeah,
I'm
four-stroke.
aware of other locations that generate noise and calls.
Most motocross bikes at this point are 4 strokes, and they're pretty quiet. And a lot of them meet emission standards and sound standards now that they didn't meet just 10 years ago. So I do know as a fact, as a motorcycle enthusiast myself. So are any more comments from the public?
I just have a question,
Sure.
because Mr. Carlson mentioned he had talked to the police chief. What police chief did you talk to?
5 years ago, was it you?
I don't believe so. I mean, I talked to everybody.
It was a group email that everybody was in. I could pull it up.
Oh, it was email, not a conversation.
Oh, the email, yeah,
Okay.
it was, yeah, it just said, is it legal to ride your motorcycle on private property? Because at that point, it was just.
Yeah,
10 of
so
us riding, you know?
again, if
It's evolved.
that context, you have a piece of property
Yeah,
and you have a motorized vehicle, you can ride on.
ride it with your friend. Directly. That's all the question I asked.
No, I just thought it was a conversation. I apologize.
No,
Thank you for your clarification.
I think you're right, though. I don't think you've had any interaction. 5 years, nice to meet you. I've been curious.
Ma'am?
I just wonder, have you spoken to anyone that actually has a residence there? It seemed to be saying that it isn't really residential, but there are some residences there, are there not?
I got one email from an individual just recently regarding concern about noise.
Right. Because I've spoken to someone that was a concern.
Right.
Is the noise and.
But I did get one communication regarding that. I received one.
Mr. President, we likely received all the same one, I'm thinking, because I received one recently, but also a couple of weeks ago, maybe when the planning board was discussing it, a residential abutter, not one of the industrial owners, reached out and said that he is a good property owner and is really respectful. It's not too loud for them. Again, everyone's perspective is different. There was concern about more uses than just motocross, for example, camping and helicopters. So that was actually something I meant to mention earlier.
I had one thought regarding the helicopters. We do not have an urgent care in town. We have no urgent care facilities in town. I have two friends that are pilots for a life flight. That go out to remote areas and brings critically injured patients to on helicopters to Bacchus Hospital in Westerly and so on. I would hope there would be a helipad on the property. I would hope that they would have that because we have a 30-minute drive to any urgent care in this state. 30 minutes to South County Hospital if the traffic's not too heavy, 28 minutes to Kent County Hospital, I work there. 30 minutes to Westerly Hospital, I work there. So we would need a helipad. We would need the ability to get somebody who's shattered a pelvis or something like that going over a jump or what have you and been hit by another rider or something like that. And I think it would be responsible of the property owner to have the helipad. As far as camping, I don't know. That's kind of pushing it. But would you be?
I talked about my tour bus. I have a tour bus on the property. That's not camping.
Oh,
If you have the authority, if you want to limit the use of this property to that use code that you would be creating in the motion.
Right.
Just wanted you to know that you can do that if you want to do that.
I think we're so early in the whole process that to throw limits on now would be counterproductive. I think I'd like to see how it fleshes out, how the property owners planning board approval of motocross, they're the conditions that you listed, and I'd like.
And I've spoken to Mr. Mancini about those before.
Right, okay. So I don't want to add any more onerous restrictions to the property. Did you have?
Just what, does he have any plans of furthering it, developing it into more than just what he has now? He's looking to make it bigger.
No,
Better.
that's a misconception. We don't plan on changing anything. It was a gravel bank before, so the earth has been disturbed for 100 years. Not we don't have plans to make it bigger. But, you know, we're trying to be able to go through the steps to be there. More little league games.
So the noise couldn't get any.
I have an affidavit from 9 of the residential neighbors on the road that are all in support and in favor and say that we're not about it.
My own feeling, because unless we have somebody else coming up. Oh, is this, so would you allow that?
Yeah.
Sir,
No, what you mean.
ma'am, come on up.
didn't you do that to her last time?
Well, I still have a man saying that here.
Short, that's what I
I
am.
heard it.
Joan Kent, I live in Richmond Hills. They're going to have to do everything that DEM wants. They're gonna have to follow procedures and they're gonna have to get everything done. The zoning is the first step so that they can move on and get all those things accomplished. My son raced in BMX, not the motorized pedal bikes, for years. Rocky Hill, many years ago. And it was a great sport for the kids. It was a great sport for the parents. And it's a community that sticks together.
Right.
My son races with his children now at DM's, which is wonderful. It's a great sport. The people are wonderful. I think you all should go down and visit it and see what can be accomplished there for those kids in our community. Because I think it's thank you.
Thank you. So my own thing, I've been riding motorcycles since I was 12 years old. My wife, I've been riding motorcycles, dirt bikes since I was 12 years old. Both of my daughters ride dirt bikes. My eldest daughter, who is 36, competes in motocross events. Her husband competes in motocross events. There is nowhere in the state of Rhode Island that people can legally ride and enjoy this sport. Yet the state is happy to take 7% sales tax. And for 20 years, the state took a surcharge on street bike registrations and then rolled it into the general fund through Nick Mattiello. And that money was supposed to be spent on riding land too. And so as an enthusiast myself, as a supporter of any kind of motorcycle sport, I think would be an incredible feather in the town of Richmond's cap to have the very first legal motocross track. It would be something that would put Richmond on a map rather than squabbling town councils and a fair that had to be shut down because the traffic couldn't make it down the road. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it. And at that point, unless there's someone, the virtual person, I'd like to hear from them.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name's Thea Brennan. I am a Buttonwoods resident that was required to be notified because we're within the 200 feet of the property. I want to start off by saying that overall, we have no issues right now with the motocross facility as it operates. Jordan is polite and appropriate. I will say, and these are the things I want to say, is it is a bit of a noise disturbance because any nice day, we no longer just have the backwoods of Richmond to listen to, it's motocross that we do listen to. And so my concern is, while I don't have anything against the rezoning, is where it goes. And that is because based on advertising on his website, there's talk of he's already allowing people to camp there overnight. It's advertised openly, as well as a plan for motocross racing. And so my concern is how often will the races occur? What is going to be the expected attendance to these things? That's my concern, because does that get louder? Does that cause more of a problem? We already have some people that seem to trespass behind the properties. And so that's a concern to me. Does that increase as well? So I just want to put those out there. We are not against him running it. I know he says he's taking donations, but I mean, people are, paying to go there. I think it will bring in some great resources and business to the community. But I just want to make sure that it doesn't turn into something humongous later on, because, we came to rural Richmond for a reason. And so that's my only concern. And I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. I am concerned about camping on the property. I don't think that the property would be suitable for camping because of waste disposal and so on. And you just can't control. I don't do it now, but I used to do a lot of camping, and you'd have one jerk ruin it for an entire campground. But with that being said,
President, seems and no other further discussion, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and now I'd like to take a vote on motion. We need motion.
You have to do it, in the order that I put it on the sheet, because you have to amend the comprehensive plan future land use map first. Because if you don't, then the second part of it is not legal.
Okay,
Mr. President, I'd like to make the appropriate motion changes. Pretty much what I had written was pretty much close to this, so I'd like to enter these motions into the record. Motion number 1 and motion number 2.
we have to do one at a time.
Yeah, you
Okay,
have to vote on
motion.
number one first.
Motion number 1, I move that future land use map and the comprehensive community plan be amended by changing the designation of lot 28 on tax assessors plate 4C from residential medium density to flex tech. Motion 2.
No, we have to vote on motion
Motion
one.
1 first.
So we need a second. You second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that motion 1 passes.
President, I'd like to make motion number 2. I move that the following amendments be made to the zoning ordinance with the following conditions. Condition 1, an amendment to the zoning map to change the zoning district of lot 28 on tax assessment plate 4C from R2 to Flex Tech. Number 2, an amendment to section 18-16-010 of the zoning ordinance to add a new use code, be called use code 465, motocross facility, and make a permitted use in the Flex Tech zoning district and a prohibited use in all other zoning districts. Number 3, an amendment to section 18-16-020 of the zoning ordinance to add a description of use code 465 motocross facility as a site for motorcycle racing on enclosed off-road circuits. Number 4, an amendment to chapter 18-49 of the zoning ordinance entitled Flex Tech Development to add a sentence to section 1849-010 that says, this chapter shall not apply to any parcel in the Flex Tech zoning district used for use code 465.
Okay, and before we vote on motion number 2, I'd just like to publicly read the conditions. Condition A, the property owner must receive planning board approval for the motocross facility through whatever review process is applicable to the proposed facility at the time the application is submitted. And condition B, the property owner must obtain all legal state required state permits before submitting an application for planning board review.
I'm just gonna second the motion.
Okay. So that being said, we have a motion and a second. How do you vote?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you for coming in. Yeah. So we have,
President,
yes,
motion to open public hearing for the proposed amendments to chapter 10.06 Code of Ordinances entitled Street Stop Sign.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, public on that.
President.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is pretty clear cut. Chief already talked quite a bit about this at the last meeting. About the stop signs on Carolina News Snack and Baker's Pine Road, and to add a sign on Baker's Pine Road at Carolina News Snack. For the obvious reasons that Chief, you want to go into one, the president?
No, I don't. We don't need to go through one more time. I'd like to open it up to any discussion on the council and then to the public.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, Mr. President. Just real quick. It was brought to my attention recently by somebody who lives on Baker Pines. They were concerned with speeding on the entire, and that putting a sign only at the end will definitely help with the curve, but not necessarily the rest of the road. I don't travel that road a lot, so I appreciate when people reach out with information like that because they get just cars going down all day. So they had kind of more of a question, which I'd like to also ask, is if it would be beneficial to have the stop sign further down, like on Wisteria or New London. New London seems a little too early to me, but something like that instead. I don't know. Other
Chief, do you have any thoughts?
I'm not completely clear on what you're asking. I can tell you when it comes to speed complaints,
Mhm.
we get those quite a bit, and we'll deploy the variable message board for data. We'll go out and enforce, and if the person is acceptable or agreeable to it, we'll use their driveway to run radar.
Mhm.
Obviously, there are over 100 roads in town and 40 square miles to patrol, and it's a smaller police department, but speed enforcement's a huge part of that. So sometimes it's perception of the person that resides in it. I can tell you, there are times of the day where you can sit out there and it seems like no one's coming.
Right.
There are peak travel times, usually commuter hours, like with the variable message board on that intersection with CNN or Carolina News Snack and Baker Pines, the northbound data is what we captured. So as you're passing Red Oak Drive and approaching Baker Pines, we measure approximately 700 and change a day in vehicles. You can imagine maybe double that or close to 1,400 total during a day traveling and along that corridor. I think it's an easy way to get to 95 South for people that are commuting to Work Point South. So I would just encourage the public, we do track this stuff, and when you call, if it doesn't fall on deaf ears, we'll go out there and enforce it. We'll keep data on the cars that we stop, who gets warning, who gets citations based on past driving history. So I don't know if they're asking for additional traffic control devices on Baker Pines other than that one spot, but this is the spot that we studied a little bit and have proposed tonight.
Just running those roads for 33 years. Baker's Pine, I never find too much of a problem when I'm running that road. It's open and it's more visible, and it's because it's not enclosed in with a big canopy. It's well lit, but on Carolina Nooseneck, before I get to Baker's Pine, I find that road to be more of an issue with speed because of the canopy, and even wearing a bright shirt, for FNR and whatever, I find that people coming down, especially going southbound on that road, because there is a little bit of an incline, down. The issue is, I think, more on Carolina Nooseneck with the speed than really Baker's Pine.
So there are sections on Carolina Nooseneck. You're right, the canopy, when people feel confined, they're gonna go a little slower. There's a straightaway in Baker Pines after that corner that goes towards the old Cork Green Boys House, right? When people are in the privacy of their vehicle and they don't see other vehicles, or they don't see pedestrians, they drive to the speed that they feel they need to get to their appointment there. I mean, it is a form of selfish behavior. And it's also do what you think your vehicle can handle without hitting potholes and things like that. Every time the road gets improved, surface is smooth like they just did with North Road, we get speed complaints. Hillsdale Road became kind of a flume. It was like a sled coming down that hill, right? Because there were no road imperfections, and you got these S curves by, the pond and the hiking trails, and there's no houses where someone's going to call the police department. People drive again to the comfort that they have, and no one wants to be the source of a complaint. Hey, it's a red truck with this plate on it. But when they think they can do it, they'll do it. And a lot of it is just letting us know the patterns you see outside of your window in times of day, so that we can try to make the most efficient use of enforcement. But Carolina Nooseneck is always a challenge. Because of those curves, because of the houses that some are set back, some of them others are closer. As you get south of Buttonwoods Road, a lot of those houses are a short distance from Lane Roadway.
As long as they don't call and complain about some jerk in a silver Corvette, I think.
Oh, definitely not tonight. Unless
that would be
And especially Chief, after 33 years, my pace isn't quite as fast as it used to be. So when the cars do pass me, they tend to be passing me a little bit faster, it seems, than 30 years ago, because I'm not running as fast myself.
You don't want to be anaerobic. You run so fast, you're not actually breathing properly. So.
Right. I don't ever have to worry about that myself.
Mr. President,
Yes.
the resident who spoke out does walk the road frequently with dogs and their baby. I understand perception as a runner myself, so I get it. Just thank you for answering the question, I guess.
Would you please pass on their information to me outside of this hearing?
Yeah.
I'd be glad to talk to them, and we'll follow.
Yeah.
up.
Sure, that sounds good.
All jesting aside, it's a serious issue. I live on Route 138 and
Yeah.
requested an analysis of the speed there because people go by my house, especially at night, at absolutely ridiculous speeds. But in that being said, is there any public commentary? Sir.
John DeSalvo, 227 Carolina Nooseneck Road. I live right on that corner. And you already have a motorcycle racetrack in town. And it's that corner. They come from Baker Pines and hit the gears, and they're in sixth gear by the time they hit Red Oak down there, and they're still climbing and going. They ride wheelies down the road. They come around the corner. I witnessed, me and my wife was a year or two ago. a pack of bikes coming around, one went down because he was taking the corner too hard. He didn't get hurt. My wife's a nurse. She ran out there. He was scraped up a little bit, but he made it off all right. But they come from both directions. You can hear them downshifting, not just the bikes, the cars, the hot rods, everything comes by there. I own a bike myself and I owned a hot rod, so I know how it is, but
Right.
you got people that walk their dog, families that walk their dogs, multiple dogs at one time up and down the road, and they're just, nobody cares about the speed limit, no one cares about the slow curb sign, no one cares about nothing. They've been, the telephone pole got knocked down, two of them, one right on the corner of my yard and the next yard, and then one on the corner of Carolina Nooseneck where it turns into dirt, right there, right in that area.
Did that
about as
happen
big as this.
recently?
So they need to slow down on that road. It's ridiculous.
Is there some way we can slow people down besides asking?
Yeah,
them
so
nicely?
at the point where the corner is, I talked to Mr. Salvo about this at the last meeting, always, sir. The traffic average mean speed is about 25 miles an hour, which is the posted speed limit. The problem is accelerating just after making that corner.
Yeah.
And then people that are driving at night, intoxicated, we've had people leave the roadway, crash into trees, crash into poles.
And all the beer
residents up
cans
there-
all over my yard, nip bottles everywhere. I pick them up every week. I get a dozen.
So, that's gonna, if and when these get approved, we would have to be out there to follow with enforcement on the stop signs. I can tell you this, my professional experience is, when you put up a stop sign, the average person will at least make an effort to stop. Stopping is a complete cessation of movement.
And they're gonna have.
Nobody does that in this day and age. They're very important schedules, and I gotta get to where I gotta, but they make an effort to slow the vehicle to almost a stop. So, 90% of those people are gonna at least make an effort to stop. 20% will slow down,
Right.
or 10% will slow down. But I really think it'll impact public safety in the area. I think it's gonna have less collisions. I believe this. It's gonna make it easier for people that live right near that blind curve. It's a 90-degree. Essentially a 90-degree configuration with that roadway corner. When you look at it from nearer than that, I think it's gonna facilitate better and greater ease of getting out and getting into your driveway safely for the people that live in that vicinity. And that's the goal, is to minimize risk of injuries and crashes.
I mean, when they turn the corner, when they're on that corner, they broad slide it right around. So you can hear the tires screeching as they lay into the corner, and halfway through they floor it. And they head towards Route 3, or they're coming that way and floor it and head down.
Even the people that are doing the speed limit, if you try to navigate that corner at the speed limit, it is tough to stay in your lane. And you don't really, it's a local road. It's the width it needs to be legal, but you underestimate how sharp that corner is, and you end up going into the lane of market. I think this is gonna be a huge plus for the public safety.
Now, there is a stop sign on Stilson Road and Buttonwoods. Where he wants
If
to.
you could Please address.
When you come down.
Please
from-
address the council.
When from Burger King, you come down there, not Burger King, McDonald's, you go down there and you take, there is a stop sign right there before you go to the dump. You take it right. I mean, if there's one there.
This is a great first step, I think, and we've done nothing forever. So now we're doing something. And like everything else, it's a process. So let's see how the stop signs go. And then if that doesn't solve the problem, then we maybe put up a speed camera and then people slow down. Revenue enhancement.
Thank you.
Thanks. Did you have a? Mark, and then the lady.
Mark Robot, 379 James Trail. I don't think it's just the motorcycles or the automobiles. I just recently had an encounter at the intersection of Buttonwoods, Carolina Nooseneck, with bicycle riders. These guys are riding in an excessive speed. And I've known these back roads when they were all dirt. And they're not much wider than they were, hardly much more than a one-lane road. So when these guys are riding 2 or 3 abreast, and they're going 30 and 40 miles an hour. As I looked up to my left, there wasn't anybody coming. I went to pull out. 4 bikes come around the corner and they swear at me. I'm thinking, if you were speeding, this wouldn't have even been a close encounter. Now, the holiday, yesterday or Sunday, a group stopped at the corner of James Trail and Hillsdale Road. So I walked out to talk to them. One member there got stung by a bee, and of all the guys not to have an EpiPen, I didn't have an EpiPen. But I just asked them, I said, look, if you are in a group or an association, can you inform other riders that they don't need to come out here on these back roads going 30 and 40 miles an hour and swear at residents when they're not riding safe? So besides the motorcycles and the automobiles, somebody has to take a look at this bicycle situation because they really think they own the road.
We also
And it's
have,
not safe for anybody.
we have issues with electrical bikes now. Electrical bicycles, some of them, if you take the governors off, are capable of 50 miles an hour. And they're not licensed, they're not registered, they typically have caliper brakes and they can't stop for a darn, so.
Well, this was obviously a group. They all had kind of like uniforms on or whatever. But the other group I encountered the other day, and when I yelled to them a couple of times, I said, thanks for the courtesy to come back and hear what I got to say, because it's for the good of everybody. And they all came back because, like I said, one member got stung.
Right.
But I said, just to be safe, guys, I said, you come out here, you ride 2 or 3 abreast, you're supposed to follow the rules of the road, you don't stop at stop signs, and it's not safe. I don't need to be sworn at because somebody's going too fast and I'm pulling out of an intersection. I look, if it's clear, it's clear. A lot of these corners with stop sign have to pull out beyond the white line to even see either direction to know you're safe to pull out or not.
It would be great had some brush cleared. I know that when I
Well,
went
it's-
to that intersection, there was a tree that went across the stop sign.
They've been doing a good job with brush and stuff. I don't think it's that. They're just blind corners or the normal landscape. You can't see over a hill. It's not gonna, if people are traveling the limit, speed limit, it's safer. That's all. I'm just saying, nobody's got an excuse if they're doing things right in the first place. And that's, thank you. for
Thanks.
the time.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Ashley Douglas, I actually live at the property that initiated this request. So thank you for your time, Chief Elwood, thank you. I want to also stress that that corner is a bus stop. Today being the first day of school, it actually was a pretty good experience for me to share today that, you know, we got my daughter on the bus. She's 6 years old. No problems. We watched multiple vehicles go around, even though there were multiple children at the bus stop going very quickly with us standing there. But after we safely got our children onto the bus, we looked both ways to go cross back onto the street. And I was halfway into the road and almost got hit by a car that was speeding coming from Baker Pine onto Caroline and Gooseneck. And that individual stopped in the middle of the road to yell at me for saying that I was wrong for crossing the road when a vehicle is coming. So yes, there's brush that needed to be cleared out. We've had a lot of near misses in my driveway from people going around the corners. And as another gentleman mentioned before, a lot of those accidents actually landed into my property. So it would be great if those are stop signs that are there, regardless of whether or not people stop, it will at least slow them down. And we would like to have that opportunity.
Okay, excellent, thank you. If there's not anyone else, I'd like to, oh, sir?
I'm say a Richmond resident, Mike, this isn't fluorescent, but it is orange. I just like to know, addressing you, but you can address the chief, what the feasibility and legalities would be putting a speed bump with a speed bump sign before those dangerous intersections.
I'd like, go ahead.
Speed
I mean,
bump.
they have them in front of schools. It pisses everybody off, excuse me. It does. But if it's such a dangerous intersection, could we do that prior to getting to the stop sign, knowing there's a stop sign, but there's a speed bump before the stop sign, and it's gonna slow everybody down, because they're not gonna want to take the bottom of the cars out. You can do a Corvette. Your Corvette.
My Corvette, I couldn't even go up with that.
Right, Mr. President,
Yeah, go ahead.
if I could, we all made the same face because speed bumps are just not gonna work around here. Ask Scott Barber how he feels about speed bumps, but make sure you got like a good half an hour first.
See, speed bumps destroy snow plows,
Yeah,
destroy them. And
There's also a liability element for unsuspecting motorists who are traveling on the state highway. I know DOT is dead set against them for liability reasons, but I mean, I think one example of where it works is a college campus. URI has them on Flag Road and they're flattened at the top. You can actually do 10 miles an hour going over those, no problem. You do 20 and you're gonna spill your coffee and it's gonna be uncomfortable. So, but generally speaking, I know state DOT is against installment of those and will not put them on state highways.
right. Right. Any other, sir? Who bites at the apple, sir?
Brief. I just want to say speed bumps. If you got like a dirt bike on off road, they're gonna use it as a jump.
Right,
Okay, and if you got a street bike like mine, that's low to the ground, it hits when you go over it. So when I come to a speed bump, I go off and I go around the speed bump.
right. I do the same with my motorcycle, so. Go
Well,
ahead.
what we do in the town of Richmond is we put potholes in.
And so we have many speed controls on many roads.
Mr. President, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
So
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, aye.
Aye.
Mr. President, I make a motion to amend chapter 10.06 of the Code of Ordinances entitled Street Stop Signs. The amendment would add a stop sign on Carolina Nooseneck Road at Baker's Pine Road. The amendment will also add a stop sign on Baker's Pine Road at Carolina Nooseneck Road.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Next, we have the consent agenda.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
there's only one item, but I would have pulled it, so I don't know if I need to do that before we make our motion. Just because I have an amendment to the minutes.
Okay,
Mr. President, I said all.
Right.
okay, so we have two amendments to the minutes. So why don't we discuss that prior to?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Page 9, paragraph 4 says I received emails at the last meeting. We were just told about the emails. I didn't receive a copy of them, so I just wanted the record to reflect that, so it doesn't reflect I received something I didn't.
Okay, and Mike,
Mr. President.
wait until she's.
Yeah. What's that?
Yeah.
Cool. Page 6. Where it says Council Colasanti advised he was only referring to the town budget. I also stated the town municipal budget has increased 82% over 10 years. $82% over 10 years.
Is that the town budget total or the municipal
Just the
portion?
municipal portion.
Okay,
Mr. President,
yes.
motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Next, we move to public forum, and it's getting late, so I'm gonna ask people to, if they have something to say, please limit your time to 3 minutes or less.
I'm Kristen Chambers from Richmond, and I'm here as a representative of the Richmond Historical Society. I was too late to get these in your packet, but it's not made to give an informational packet to the town council members.
If you, yes, I'm fine with that.
And this is just kind of a public service announcement to the town. The Richmond Historical Society was organized 55 years ago in 1968. As stated in our Constitution, the purpose of RHS is to promote interest in local history, to be a repository for local items of historical significance, and to aid and encourage the maintenance and preservation of historical sites, properties, and landscapes. The RHS archives are located on the second floor of the Clark Memorial Library. Head archivist Richard Wolke and staff frequently receive questions about genealogy and local history, not only from Richmond and Rhode Island residents, but from searchers around the country. The chair of the Richmond Historical Cemetery Committee, Dory Wagner, possesses extensive knowledge and invites people to join the committee to help maintain and preserve these historic sites. RHS owns 2 historical buildings in town, the Bell School Museum, which is symbolized on the town seal right behind you, and the Carolina Village Museum, which prior to the construction of the present town hall was the location of the town clerk's office. Both buildings date to the 19th century and require ongoing maintenance. The Bell School has open hours on weekends from June to September, and the tiny Carolina Village Museum is open by appointment. Currently on display at the school is an exhibit on Richmond in the Civil War, and the recently donated Richmond Elementary School quilt is on permanent display. And I'm just wondering if anyone has been to visit the Bell School this summer.
I have not visited this summer. However, my organization donated the white display cases that you guys have there now.
They look great. We actually painted them. And that's where our Civil War display is, mostly in those cases. Thank you.
Thank you.
RHS exchanges information and co-sponsors programs with a newly formed collaborative of local historical societies. Our next cooperative event takes place on Saturday, September 16th at the Quaney Grange in Charlestown, when author and researcher Marty Podscotch will be presenting on the Civilian Conservation Corps in Rhode Island. Another upcoming event will occur during the Hop Arts Weekend, October 14th and 15th, when the Bell School will be a venue for local woodworker people. The Society is a small volunteer organization which depends financially primarily on donations and membership dues, fundraising, town funding, and grants. Fundraising has been curbed by the recent pandemic, but we are getting back on track. The 200th anniversary of the Bell School will take place in 2026, and we envision an event to celebrate this beloved symbol of Richmond and to raise funds to ensure the continuation of RHS. Such an event will require many minds and hands to be a success. The anniversary is just over 2 years away, but it is not too soon to start planning. We welcome individuals and community groups to join us in this endeavor. September is membership month at RHS, though people can join at any time of year. You need not be a Richmond resident to become a member or to support RHS through donations. You can join via our website, and please follow and like our Facebook page, Richmond, Rhode Island Historical Society. If you're interested in history, there's sure to be a committee area that will fit your interest, including programming, fundraising, historical cemeteries, publicity, technology, or contributing to the quarterly newsletter. We look forward to welcoming new members. If you would like further information, you can email us at rihiso@gmail.com. Thank you.
Kristen,
Yes.
could you tell me, what does it cost to join? What is the year?
We have different categories going from student at $10, and there's individual family memberships up to a life membership of $500, but we will take anything. We're very small, we're very poor.
I have a few Civil War artifacts. I'd like to talk to somebody afterwards to see if I can display them.
Oh, great. Do they pertain to Richmond?
My great grandfather was a surgeon, naval surgeon
Oh,
in the
cool.
Civil War.
Okay, yes, I'd like to talk to you then.
Thank you. Anyone, sir?
Could I just expound a little bit on the school, a little history? You might be interested in that. Again, Mark Robach from 279 James Trail. Little history about the school there. The school's been relocated. The school was where the little fire station is at the top of the hill, Tug Hollow Hill, Tug Hollow Road. And my grandfather attended that school. He started it at the age of 3 and went there till about 1914, I believe. But then when he turned 16, he lied about his age and joined the United States Navy, where he became captain and commander of the North Atlantic Fleet. I have pictures of him with President Harry S. Truman aboard the Missouri at the surrender of Japan. For those that don't know the significance of this of Richmond's son, Captain Marcus L. Whitford. He also came back to Rhode Island and taught Jimmy Carter and Richard Nixon at the Newport War College. He resided in Tug Hollow, where his grandfather, Tom Lafreniere, an Abnaki, and his wife, Emily, the Blackfeet Indian, settled here in Richmond around 1840. So there's a little history about Bell School and my grandfather's attendance there. He's also on February 11th in Rhode Island is Captain Marcus Whitford Day.
Really?
He was the first recipient of the Rhode Island Star. So quite an accomplishment for a guy that went to a one-room schoolhouse to the 8th grade, traveled the world. If you think about it, he got 64 years of schooling because they were all taught there.
What is
8 times 8 is
What
60.
is the day? What is the date?
February 11th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, Mark.
This won't be nearly as informative as the past two presenters, but I just had a question or clarification of something I saw on social media, and knowing social media, it's probably not accurate, but I thought it would be helpful to raise tonight. I saw someone comment about the property across the street and the grant that we got, claiming that we had missed some kind of deadline and therefore we weren't going to be able to use the money over there on the property. Is there any clarification on the status of that?
No, nothing. Aaron? Yeah, please.
I did see that post and you're right, it's not accurate. There, by the September 30th of 2025, we have to enter into an agreement with HUD. And in order to do that, we have to do an environmental review on that property. Which I think Talia could expound upon if we need to, but I don't think we do. There's a database called HEROES. It's an acronym. We had a lot of trouble getting access to that database, not by any fault of our staff, but because there's a lot of red tape, let's just say, with federal grants. But we have finally gotten into that. We're submitting the environmental review now. And so we will be on our way towards getting the grant agreement with HUD, and then we have till 2030 to spend that money. Okay. So we have not missed any deadline.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Any further? Sir?
Me again.
Imagine that.
Well, you know, you might think that I like to speak at a podium, but I don't.
No.
I'm not a politician, nor do I ever want to be a politician.
Neither am I.
But I've got I want to address the last meeting that you had, the special meeting that was called.
Okay.
And I watched it from home because I had worked all day in the sun. I had 3 beers and I didn't want the chief to put silver bracelets on me because I don't like jewelry. So I stayed home, but I watched it and I got to tell you, it was painful to watch this. I called it a circus because, and realistically, I'm pleasantly surprised tonight because all of you are in agreement. And that's what we need to have as a town council.
I agree.
It has to be.
Everybody should think like I do.
Well, we'll keep that aside. But anyway, you know, we need, you know, I don't dislike anybody up there. I don't. But it really is a circus. And the purpose of that last meeting was to decide whether the electrical inspector had violated his probation. And it turned into going into a inquiry of the Washington County Fair. The Washington County Fair brings more money into this town than any venue that we have. And I'm sure that they're not the only ones that have had the, I've read some of the stuff, and they're not the only ones that have had the problems with Mr. Valancourt. Now, I don't know if Mr. Valancourt's here, he's not here.
I would say it to his face. But I'll tell you, when he first stood here vying for the job, and the way that he treated you, Mr. Trimmer, especially you. I was a union rep at one time. Let me tell you something. Anybody ever talked to me like that? That was the end of that. I addressed it with them off to the side, face to face and everything else. Nobody ever talks and disrespects people like that. And especially you. You're the town council president, Mr. Trimmer. You need to take control of the meetings. You need to take control of what's going on. And that meeting there it turned into a circus act. I'm saying, what is the purpose of this meeting? At the end of it, I'm saying that there's no purpose to this meeting because you changed from talking about what the meeting was about to an investigation into the Washington County Fair. I read some of the things that were on there and everything else. I heard his testimony and everything else. And to me, he's an irritant. He's aggravating to talk to and everything else. And I don't think that he's a good fit for this community. And the people that we have running this town and everything else, and the new person that took over for Sean. Sean was a great town planner, and I'm sure that she is too, you know, but the thing is, we have good employees and everything else, and I think that we have to respect their judgments. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
Well, the wonderful thing about a democracy is everybody's entitled to their opinion and everybody's entitled to voice it. And from what Mr. Saya said, with every right to say it, I would have thought he watched a completely different meeting. And I know myself and many others had a very, very different sentiment about what happened, and that's what I want to say.
Thank you. If there are no further comments, I'm going to close the public forum and we're going to move on to reports. So, Karen?
Yes. Thank you. So I had a couple updates on the ARPA funding. The council authorized $30,000 in funding for a new generator for the town hall. The electrical inspector, he advised us that we'll actually need more than the 30,000 that we put aside to get what we need for this town hall. Scott put together some spec for a bid. I posted the bid, and once that bid comes back, I will be coming back to the council to ask for whatever additional funding we need. I don't know what that number is at this time, but I just wanted to let you know that that's kind of in the pipeline. What we have out there now is very much undersized for the building.
What you and I talked about this, but I just wanted to publicly state that the current generator, besides being old and worn out, only provides the bare minimum power for the town hall, and we need a generator that's capable of handling all the electronics that we've added over the last 15 years. And so, right.
President? Oh, are you finished?
Not yet. Well, yes, I know. Go ahead.
So what did Jeff come back at as basically how undersized the generator was that you first proposed for 30,000?
I don't know the number, so I don't know whether he told me the specific numbers, but he told me how much more he told me we need about 25,000.
So you're looking at 55,000? Any other grant money out there?
Nothing
Oh,
on
no.
the for something like that.
Well, I know, President.
I just don't want to have a lengthy, she's giving a report. I don't have a lengthy discussion of it when Scott is out pricing. So it's in the process. So I really.
Yeah, I got a sheet here, the money's coming in, and we just got a big check for over $90,000 for the Beaver River, for the permits.
Right,
for
but
the
that's
actual-
not the topic.
Well, money's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would be easy to plug into
What check are you referring to?
The one from Beaver River that came in for the electrical permits, that came in June, I think it was 16th, the check. So that check was over $90,000, now I think 96,000.
Yeah, typically those revenues are accounted for though in the budget process to be spent on whatever other town services.
Yeah,
So
I prefer not to talk about this anymore at this time, that I'd like to let Karen finish her. It's 7:30. We've been here since 6 o'clock. We're only a third of the way through the agenda, and that's not an agenda item. So I'd really like it if Karen could finish her report. Thanks.
Secondly, just the water line is also an ARPA project. You authorized funding to bring the water line across 138 in the street, but we haven't sought any money to actually connect it to the building. So that is also a future request with ARPA funds.
Do you have pricing at all?
I do not. Yeah, I reached out, but I haven't gotten it.
Okay. Thank you. And the third item, the town sign.
Right, yeah, so I reached out last year to someone about some rough pricing on a town sign, but I kind of put that on hold knowing that front yard is gonna be torn up for a while and didn't really want to put a brand new sign out there. When potentially it could have to be moved or could get damaged or whatever, but for a future project, I would like us to consider putting similar to what's at the police station with the granite post, a wooden sign, and then not giant obnoxious, but some sort of ticker thing at the bottom with news.
Right, okay, so I guess we can skip my new business item.
Yeah, I had the same idea. Next, I just wanted to give a quick update on the roundabout. Our water line is run, it's been chlorinated. They're just going to take a sample to make sure that it's clean, you know, as a result of the chlorination, that it's good to go. Also, they're beginning a 12-inch drainage line under 138. It's going to connect to both of those kind of ponds that they've dug out there. That'll probably take the next couple of weeks. And then they're going to start saw cutting out there. They say they won't ever stop traffic, but there could be some lane shifts. So people could see some slight interruption in traffic. But they say they're still working with Cardi. And no snags are delayed.
Is Cardi still in business?
That seems to be the line that I'm hearing from DOT.
Right.
I'm hearing kind of the same thing on the internet that I'm hearing from the DOT employees. So I don't know if that's kind of what everyone's been told to say, but I do still see Cardi trucks around here. So
I know they share a state garage, that's why I'm curious.
And then lastly, and I know we have some people here from the dog park. We posted a bid for fencing for the dog park. As you might remember, we have a DEM grant for this project. The low bid came in at $25,804. Scott's looked at the bid. He has spoken to the vendor. He feels comfortable that the vendor has bid on what we're looking for. And so I'm just looking for your
Move to approve.
I'm sorry?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
That the fence comes with gates and
Yes.
hinges for the gates. Okay, good.
It was all part of the bid.
Is it a plastic fence or is it a metal fence?
I'll have the bid in front of me.
I just, ma'am?
Metal.
Is this public forum? Can I say something about the electronic sign? No.
Public forum was a while ago.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Motion
That's all I
second.
have.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Hi.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. Appointments and resignations. A request from Joan Marie Kent for appointment to the Economic Development Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2025. Joan, would you like to come up and? Okay. I love when
It's been a
anyone
good
is
meeting.
enthusiastic.
People are smiling, and that's good to see. Joan Kent, Richmond Hill. I lived in Richmond for about 6.5 years. I'm mother of a son, and I'm kind of taken by him. I'm kind of partial to him. I have a wonderful daughter-in-law, and I have 2 beautiful grandchildren, a boy and a girl.
Wow.
My husband was in the residential and commercial construction business for many, many years here in Rhode Island and other states. I assisted him with the day-to-day operations of the business, bookkeeping, billing, work with clients, employees, planning departments, inspectors, and so on. I even worked on the job sites, painting 3-decker houses on the east side when I was younger.
Oh, wow.
And I can cut in pretty well. You got trim.
You must have really struggled with the reaching the high places.
You got those brushes, you know, they're a little longer.
Yeah.
We owned a restaurant also in Warwick for a few years. Again, I help with the day-to-day operation of the business, not only doing bookkeeping, but ordering product, hiring employees, and working the floor, which is a full-time type of thing. For several years, I worked for some of the well-known jewelry companies in Rhode Island, product development as a jewelry designer. I also assisted in sales staff with clients such as Avon, Amway, Marvell, and Napier, some generating 24 million a year. I owned a jewelry company for 8 years, dealing again with clients, designing and producing and quality products, and many other facets of the business. My goal is to provide more opportunities for business to open in Richmond, and those that would be the best fit for our community. This would produce controlled and positive growth, which would help relieve the taxpayer's burden. Working towards these goals would only be a betterment for our community. I also feel there are many, many resources, untapped resources to help with the economic development. I would love to be appointed so I can work for my community. I
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the appointment of Joan Marie Kent for appointment to the Economic Development Commission with a term expiration of December 31st, 2025.
Second,
All those in favor?
but I did have a question for discussion.
ahead.
It was asked the last meeting to an applicant, and I thought it was a good question.
Okay.
I was wondering if she had attended any EDC meetings recently, and if there are any specific projects that the EDC was working on right now that you were excited to jump on board with.
I am not as of yet. I think I have to go for some schooling or something, or some information to work toward. Am I correct?
I believe there's some sort of ethics training that you have to
Something
go
like
through,
that.
but other than that, I don't.
Right?
Let's say many of us have.
Okay. Yeah. But I haven't been to any of these yet.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. My best. That's all I can say.
Okay, next item is unfinished business, and I have requested that we do what other boards and commissions in town have done, and we do what other towns have done, and we go completely paperless and use electronic means for the town council. It costs money to produce packets and takes valuable time to produce packets, and also the town recently purchased an $800 tablet for use for this, and it's not being used for this. So I wanted to bring that as the next item.
President, I'd like to submit this to the clerk. From eye surgeon, Mr. Figueroa, that states that I have a disability on reading the screen for long periods of time, and there it is submitted.
Okay.
So under the American Disabilities Act, be pretty hard pressed to take my hard packet away. I can't read the screen for long
I-
periods of time.
I just want to comment that I am legally blind. And as a legally blind person, to read a screen for hours at a time kills me. That's why I shut my computer off. However, in this, for the sake of continuity, time saving, money saving, I think that we can make an effort, both of us, you and I can make an effort to try and at least go by the two-page thing without all the documents printed out and all that money being spent on color printing, a couple of hours being spent by our town clerk. And we do have a tablet that was purchased for this purpose that was returned back to Karen Pinch recently.
Mr. President, I don't want to, argue the fact of the disability. The slip was given to her from the eye surgeon. And you of all people should understand, because you just stated that, you have a hard time after you just shut your computer off. So you of all people should have a better understanding than somebody younger or, whatever, that has no with their computer.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Real quick, my thoughts on this really haven't changed since we discussed it on January 19th. Sometimes I prefer paper. After a long day at work, I look at a screen all day. I just don't want to look at it anymore. I do it at work and I do it at home, and I just feel like that's something that we can print on our own dime, not on the taxpayer dime. So when I'm looking at this, thinking about the wear and tear on the copier and the time taken away by the clerk to print it and the paper itself and the toner itself, I just think about who's paying for that. And that's, again, the taxpayers. So the counselor, we can use our own resources for that. I am curious just what specific disability law we'd be breaking by asking somebody to print their paper packet, because I'm just not at all familiar with something like that. Like, it's not what I
We get a
have a
stipend.
background in.
We get a stipend for printing. I print when I want something printed, I print it. And we get the counselors get a $1,200 a year stipend, or is it $1,250? Regardless, we get a stipend to pay for things like printing things out, gas to come here and so on. Any other? Sir?
If Mr. Colasanti put in a request for a reasonable accommodation, it's already been granted because he's been getting it printed for the last 10 months. So to take it away, it seems like you would be stepping on his rights as an American with a disability. If you want to go down that road, I'm sure Mr. Colasanti will defend himself.
Yeah.
Mr. President, which
Go ahead, Rich. Go ahead.
that just reiterates or makes me want to ask my question again. Like, what specific American disability law are we breaking? I'm not an employer.
ADA.
No, like that's a whole act, American Disability Act. So I'm wondering,
Reasonable accommodation.
Mr. President, what I'm asking is if an attorney would have that information for us, or if
Right.
not, then we'll just.
Karen?
I don't, I'm not an expert on the ADA. I'm
Yeah.
aware of it, but if I needed to answer a question like that, I would have to look up the answer.
I think, isn't Marcy the coordinator for the town?
So we paid $800 for a tablet. And it was ordered, what, February? And it sat at the vendor for several months. And then Councilor Colasanti picked it up, and within a few days, he turned it into the town.
Yeah, Mr. President,
Do you have a printer at home?
this is a town business, and I shouldn't have to bear the expense of paper and ink and time to do it myself. This has everything to do with the town. If I asked the new town to come in and I gave her personal things to print, it'd be a different story. But this is all has to do with the town business. And for the small expense of over the course of a year of what this town budget is, this little bit of paper, it's neither here nor there. It's town business. It's not my personal business.
That's why we get $1,200 a year to do this.
No, that's not why we get that. Does not specify anywhere that that money is to pay for printing costs, ink costs, gasoline and whatnot. Has nothing to do with that. It's a stretch.
I think this is a stretch. You don't have a problem looking on your cell phone for reading emails and whatnot. You have multiple emails with your signature on them or your name typed in there. So you have the capability to respond to an email. This is nothing more than a simple email. You read it. If you want to print it out, you can print it out. I don't sit here for hours upon hours upon hours like the planning board to look at a couple of hot links on this thing. I think it's kind of disturbing that you're playing this game for something that's so incredibly simple, where machine gets on a computer and puts on, which I'm assuming you're a couple of years older than Mr. Calisante, and you don't seem to have a problem with your computer and looking at it. You didn't have one before. Now all of a sudden magically you have this problem. I find it to be.
Mr. President, this meeting was going good up to this point, but when Councilman Husseini claims that I'm playing a game and he's on his typical soapbox, that's where I draw the line.
Well, at this point, I have to call order on both.
Disability, and he doesn't know what goes on in my personal life and whatnot. About who reads the email, who prints the emails and whatnot. And there's somebody here that can verify that.
Mrs. Scott.
I would just like to say this. I can vouch for the fact that I see my husband spend hours looking over his packet, hours that he could not spend on the computer. And as far as emails, he has very few emails, and there is a vast difference between reading a few emails and spending hours examining information. And as far as research that goes into looking into more items on agenda items, he spends hours at looking at things that he asks me to research for him on the computer, which I do, and we print that out at our cost. My husband puts a lot of research into preparing himself for this meeting, for these meetings, and we print all of that at our expense. And I think that a council that talks a lot about how we need to get along together better, to completely dismiss what he's saying is a problem with him, even validated by his eye doctor, I think it's disrespectful, and quite frankly, in the words of many people that have heard about this, quite petty. And that's my opinion.
Ma'am?
Don't get again. I'll gladly donate paper so that you can all be on the same page. How many boxes do you need?
It's just the time and the additional, it's like.
President, why don't you ask the clerk how much time she spends?
You want me to help you? I can copy.
No, I will say that when, for the end of the fiscal year, Laura asked us to stop spending, we actually rationed paper here, because we were down to one case to get us through the month of June. And the paper cost did go from $29 to $48, and I only know that because of the research in that. So, as far as that go, I mean, there is a cost to printing the packet. As far as time goes, it's more of it's changing the process, I think, from having electronic packets and paper packets. It's not a staffing issue with running it through the copier. It's more of the additional additions of stuff that might come in that can't be linked anymore because the agenda deadline is also the packet deadline. So it's changed the policy a little bit, but there is, an added cost to that. And that's, it's not overburdensome work-wise, it's just changed the policy or the procedure, not the policy, the procedure of how packets are prepared. Because if bid information comes in late on the day of the packet to go out, that might not make an agenda anymore because we can't add it after the fact. Because then Mr. Colasanti would be coming in a couple times a day or a couple times a week to get it.
If you need some boxes, I'm more than willing to donate some. And if you want me to come and copy, I will. So you got my phone number.
Chief?
It's a very generous offer, Renee, so I just, for the sake of efficiency, someone presents something like that, there's an ADA coordinator with the state who actually gets paid to answer those types of questions. Maybe you want to table this, move on in the agenda.
Right.
Suggestion for you to consider, directing you what to do, but seem to be somewhat at an impasse. There is an ADA
Right.
coordinator with the state that deals with
Right,
these.
I'd like to find out what the ADA ruling is. So I don't know if I can make the motion, but I'd like to make a motion to table this and move to the next agenda item.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Okay. Oh, okay, new business. Discussion and consideration of potential amendments or addition to the ordinance 2.20.040, appointment, probation, layoff, and authorizing for town clerk to advertise for public hearing.
At your last meeting, you requested a draft amendment to the personnel chapter of the school board that would provide more detail for the method that you use to screen and appoint department heads.
Right.
And that's what this draft is.
And that draft also helps us to comply with the voters' choices regarding the that were modifications to the charter, changing the way we do some hiring and so on, correct?
I don't know if it does that, but the idea behind this was that you would get a better idea of the qualifications of all of the people that applied for a particular position. And you would also be able to get an idea of how many qualified people for a particular position are out there
Right.
by being able to review all of the resumes and applications that come in that are determined to be from qualified
Right.
applicants.
I thought it was pretty good reading it, but
Mr. President, either way,
Go
either way, it's
ahead.
fine, we'll both get a turn. I just had a few questions, and I did bring this to Karen's attention. I was expecting it to not be just the department heads, so we could really just get it all done at once, not solely department heads, but somebody who's not a department head, what the procedure would be to hire them. So when I read this, I just thought it was good, but wanted to make sure that it goes further and does that. Another thing that I thought was just simpler was the very last sentence. Town council may, I just think it'd be simpler. Town council may take action in accordance with the Home Rule Charter, Article 4, Section 1, Paragraph B1. Just because it kind of, the language isn't identical, and I don't want that to cause unnecessary confusion. So I just thought a little streamline there, referencing the charter may clarify.
Are you in section B?
Yes, the proposed section B.
Okay.
Just the last sentence there. Another thought I had was a little nitpicky, but each candidate judged to be qualified just seemed, the wording just seemed a little demeaning, I thought. So I thought determined to be qualified just would make somebody applying for that job not feel like they were being judged. Because somebody looking for a municipal job may look at this one day.
I limited the amendment to department heads because I got the impression from the discussion that you had at the last meeting that that's what you are most concerned about.
Right.
I can also draft a separate section for other employees other than department heads. That would be a different procedure, wouldn't be the same procedure necessarily.
Could we also address the wording? I think. Yeah, I've tried to be so politically correct, but at 63, the language that I speak is different than the language that's spoken now at times. And so.
I have another question also. It says the committee will be composed of 2 or 3 other persons chosen by the town administrator. So I wonder if we could have one of them be a town council member appointed by the town council president.
That's up to you guys.
Yeah. I had thoughts on that. I don't think that a counselor should be in the interview. I feel like we're already here, making the appointment later. I know why it's there, just because it's been a topic of discussion, but I don't, and I kind of thought like from the town administrator's perspective, again, not today, but years down the line, that it says that they may appoint a town official or an elected town official. And I just think like, what if that goes astray somewhere where somebody feels like they should have been and weren't, or maybe then asked to be a part of it when they shouldn't. Those are things that shouldn't happen. So part of me wants to just say that elected town officials should not participate in the interviews because we're already making the appointment itself.
It would be a conflict. Yes.
In our got the word, but in our duties, we're not supposed to direct any town employee on anything that they do. So we should not be in these meetings at all. It's not our job. Our job is to appoint or not to appoint, given the recommendation of the town administrator. Period.
It's very clear in the charter.
It's extremely clear. We appoint or we don't appoint. Nothing else. So the verbiage of hiring and firing is completely and totally wrong. We appoint or we don't appoint. And that's where the buck needs to stop.
Mr. President?
Yes.
On those questions that were on the ballot. Question number 5. It says town manager. Now, Ms. Pinch is a town administrator. Okay. So number 5 stated, shall the charter be amended to make the town administrator a town manager with more ability over personnel administration? That was nixed. People did not vote for that. They did not vote to change her title from administrator to manager. Then when you look at number 7 was passed, but it's actually canceled out because number 5, people didn't vote for it. Because in number 7, hiring decisions, shall the charter be amended to prohibit town council members from attempting to influence the town manager's decisions on hiring. That's a moot issue because the people of Richmond voted down number 5 on the ballot, which then makes number 7 a moot issue because she's not the manager, she's still the town administrator. So when you look under the town charter, the town charter specifically states that the town council is the hire and firing body. I don't know why everybody keeps clouding the issue with that. And it states in the town charter that the town administrator will bring qualified candidates, to the town council. But it does not also state in the town charter that it's not the responsibility of the town council to be in on the interview process. Until I said it 2 months ago, no town council under the current administrator has ever gotten the applications or resumes from any applicant. So again, number 5 was nixed, which then cancels out number 7.
Well, not, my viewpoint on that is the voters spoke. Whether it said town administrator or town manager, the voters did not want the town council involved in making these decisions. And we have gotten ourselves in some hot water by not following the wishes of the voter and not following the town charter. So we need to more closely follow the town charter. We need to more closely follow the wishes of the voter. And so I don't see how number 7 is canceled out. The assumption perhaps when someone wrote those things was that 5 would pass, so 7 wording would be properly. But then what if they had put it, Mark, please, no,
What if they would have put a slash, manager slash?
administrator,
It had a little more to do with that.
right?
It did have a little more to do with that, but in my opinion, that doesn't mean that we can't move forward respecting the fact that more people voted in favor of number 7 than voted for any of us to be up there.
Okay, Mark, please help us clarify this.
Two things. Section 7 existed prior to the 2022 election in virtually the same form as it is now. The only proposed change in section 7 was to change the word administrator to manager, because that's what would have happened had the other questions been approved. Section 7 has existed long before 2022. So to say that the voters, by rejecting section 7, nullified it in its entirety, they did not. The only thing that they did, which was consistent, was the word manager is not there, it's still administrator. But the prohibition on this council directing employees, interfering in the day-to-day operations of this town hall has existed in this charter for a long time. And not until very recently have town council members felt that it was their prerogative to try to interfere in the day-to-day operations of this town hall. And it's a violation of the charter, it's inappropriate, and it needs to stop. And it's inappropriate, as was stated earlier, and this is the way it's done in other municipalities. If you're the appointing authority, you should not be involved in the interview. The interview process calls the candidates to 1 or 2, if it's a department head, whatever the town administrator brings to the council. It's a conflict to have the ultimate decision maker in a municipal organization involved in the interview committee, particularly when, as a town council member, you can exert undue influence over people on that committee. You're not going to get a fair assessment of the candidates if council members are in there weighing in. You're not going to get it. You have an opportunity to voice your opinion when the appointment comes before you. It's very clear.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Yes.
I was elected. The town administrator is not elected.
I have to cut you off, only because
Why, Mr. President?
because you've brought this up before.
You don't know what I'm going to finish saying, Mr. President.
You
Can I
brought,
please continue?
the point is, you brought this up before. We swore an oath to follow the charter.
And the charter, excuse me, Mr. President, the charter says the town council is the hire and fire body. If I don't have all the accurate information with all the resumes, I cannot make a just decision on who the best candidate is. And I just, excuse me, I got 1 more minute. You're not going to take my First Amendment right away. Now, it's never a done deal because you and Mr. Nassani were on the council in December 21st, 2016, when Ms. Pinch, the town administrator, brought Joseph St. Lawrence as the building official / deputy zoning official. He was not qualified. He did not have the licenses. And he was in that position until February 6, 2018. He was appointed, all right, with Ms. Pinch's recommendation on December 21st, 2016. And it was the first time executive session they went in and they discussed his job performance, and he was fired because he did not have the certification that a man in the building official's office / deputy zoning should have had. And he had like 14, 15 months to get the paperwork in order. But again, Mr. Husseini and Mr. Trimmer were on the council in 2018 when Mr. St. Lawrence had to be fired. So it's never a foolproof thing, even when the town's administrator brings forth a name.
All right, are you done? Karen?
I would just like to say for the record that no one who applied for that position had the requisite certification. The council approved Mr. St. Lawrence with the understanding that he would get the certification in a certain period of time. And when he did not, he was then let go.
Mr. President, respectfully,
I'm
that
sorry.
appointment, that issue is not what's on the agenda.
Right.
So I kind of want to just rein this back into what we're here to
Well,
discuss, which
I-
is how we're going to move forward together, because that's all I want to do here is figure
Yeah.
out what can work for us.
That
And
was
again, not
7
just-
years
excuse me.
ago.
Exactly. So not just what's working for us, but what's working for future councils. And to bring that back to something that Councilor Colasanti said about receiving all of the resumes, one thing I liked about the language was that I believe it specified that we only need to receive qualified people's or persons resumes, which I feel like is important, because if somebody's not qualified, I really don't need to see their resume. But if you feel like you do want to see somebody's resume, it's good that it's limited to just qualified.
President,
Bring it back.
someone.
Yeah, but right now we're discussing it amongst.
I
council. Yeah.
I had proposed adding a town council member to the committee, but I'm pretty convinced that it's fine the way it is. I like the way it is because we're going to get the resumes. We can look at them. I'd say we should move forward on this as it is.
Right. Okay, so that being,
I didn't see, Mr. President, I didn't hear what Councilman Husseini just said.
I said, I don't believe that council members should be looking at other people's resumes. I think.
well, the Mark, I know what you're gonna say. This isn't a public
I
forum.
have a crystal ball, I know that. You know what Mike's gonna say all the time.
Right.
But you never know what Samantha Wilcox is gonna say, do you?
We're trying to move past 7 years ago.
Listen, you're never gonna get by it till you're correct.
Point of order.
So we have the amendment put before us. We have some suggested changes in wording.
One suggestion was to change the word judged to determine. And the other was to cross-reference the appropriate section of the charter.
Right.
Yep, I'd like to make a third, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
In the sentence, I don't even know, third sentence. Other persons chosen by the town administrator may be appointed town officials. I think we should cross out elected town officials and add a sentence after that says something along the lines of, feel free to add legalese, elected town officials shall not participate in.
President, I'd also like to add that the information included without limitation, candidates' resumes, evaluations prepared by the town administrator shall be confidential. We shouldn't see any resumes at all.
I agree, because we recently hired someone and the resume had it, you know, the information got back to the previous employer and it was made things difficult. So a lot of this should, in a private business, when I apply for, I work for GE, if I apply at Phillips Medical,
You're fired immediately. You're fired immediately, right? Yeah.
Right.
So why would you do that to other people?
right? It's just, these are confidential resumes, they should be kept confidential.
Well, if you don't, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I think we do need to see the resumes, because how do you make a decision if you do not have the information?
Because
The
you were getting,
suggestion was that would be with an evaluation prepared by the town administrator. She would mention the person's qualifications, but not necessarily everything in the resume. I think that was the idea, am I correct?
So
Mr.
it's
President,
done.
Yeah,
that's
go
what I
ahead, please.
gathered when I read it, how it said resumes or evaluations prepared by the town administrator.
That's what we have a town administrator for, to prepare these, to evaluate the employees and present the case to the town council for approval.
Mr. President, I just think that it's just, and it could be a harsh word, I don't know, but it's a non-elected bureaucrat is given the power over elected officials that people in this town vote for every 2 years. And it's taking the discretion away from the elected officials to be able to make a accurate decision. And I think Councilor Sheen is, I think, the only other employer here. None of you come with any experience with having to hire employees and look at their resumes and have to make a just decision on what is best for your company. And you're saying that I am going to relinquish my responsibility to a bureaucrat that was not elected by the people of this town. I'm sorry, it doesn't sit well with me.
Mr. President, I find that to be rather offensive to the
It
administrator.
is. It's not that.
Considering the administrator does more work than most people will ever know. Again, we are we have the ability to
Accept the
accept
appointment.
the appointment or not accept the appointment. I think you guys are all missing the point that she's not the authoritative person that you are deeming her to be. She's giving you options of people that have applied, that are qualified, because they're the ones that are, again, all the way back to what I've said since the beginning, they're the ones that are going to be working with them. So when somebody who doesn't work well with others, and we've now experienced some of them, guess what? Now you have people who don't work well, and now you have ethic issues, and now you have personnel issues, and now you have all these other issues. They're the ones that are working with them every single day. Every day. So rely on them. It's amazing that some people will go, I'm going to take the advice of the expert on one appointment and then totally dismiss the expert on another appointment. It's fantastic to me that it's whatever sways in your direction or what you want, but not what's right for the entire town employees or the people in this town.
Mr. President.
I don't want to debate it any further.
We need to, because if we get a applicant that the town administrator brings forth, what is the litmus test? If we don't like that person, how do we, excuse me,
Okay, hold
you're
on.
interrupting me.
Please.
How do we determine that? Because we haven't received any other applications or resumes from anybody else. And you said it all, Mr. Nursani, that if Ms. Pinch doesn't want that person, they won't work with her. What will it be? Do they have to toe to the town administrator, or do they have to be beholden to the taxpayers of this town?
Could I just
Sure,
clarify something?
please.
The difference between the current procedure and this ordinance draft is that you would not see just an evaluation of one person, the person that's being recommended. You would see the evaluations of all of the people who were determined to be qualified.
Right.
I like that.
It makes sense. And other towns, the town councils don't hire employees. I have friends on the town council in East Greenwich. The town council in East Greenwich does not hire. I spoke with the council president this past weekend. I was at a restaurant with him, and the town council does not hire employees. They hire department heads, not employees. And
Mr. President,
yes, go ahead.
I think it's important to recognize that if we don't like the recommendation for whatever reason, then there are options. So
Right.
it's not like we can send her back to the drawing board. I can pull it up right here, but there are options for what we can do. So it's not like we're relinquishing anything. We're still having our responsibility and making sure that we work in collaboration with the staff that we pay to do this for us. Sometimes leadership is delegation. It's just how it is. So at this point, moving it forward, we're going to get a new draft. based on our discussions. And I think those discussions were pretty clear. One thing I wanted to clarify is that anything we receive should be confidential. So if we have a recommendation from the town administrator, she says, I'm recommending Bob. And you don't like Bob, you have options, but pulling somebody else out of that hat of qualified people and blurting their name out and saying, I want to appoint this person instead, breaches their confidentiality. They may not get that job, and also puts me up for a potential ethics violation that I may not know can happen because I run every single person through my firm's software to make sure I don't have conflicts. And when something like that's put on me, I just don't think that's fair. So when we get the recommendation from the town administrator, it shouldn't be just switching it over to somebody else during that meeting. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, I wanted to respond to a comment that Mike made regarding who has and hasn't hired people. I was a operations manager for a 7-hospital system. I hired an engineering team to man that 7-hospital system. I hired 70 people, technical professionals. I built a service team and I won awards for that service team that I built. So please don't assume that I'm clueless and don't know how to hire people, and only someone who owns a business knows how to hire people. I won a national award for my team that I built, and I won a financial award as well. So I appreciate your comments, but I just wanted to inform you that you were incorrect. Do we have any other comments from the council? Okay, that being said, I'm going to ask for a comment from Mark first, and Catherine. And Mark, if you're going to bring up stuff from 7 years ago, I am going to cut you off. Thank you.
I have with me the resume that was presented. I believe I was.
Okay, but if you're going to bring up the resume or your comments from 7 years ago, we're not here to discuss that. I know that's a bone of contention for you. I know you haven't.
Well, you had a chance to do something about it 7 years ago, both you and Rich Nasani.
But
unfortunately, Justin Price is
we're
the
not
state
talking about
representative
that,
was here
Chief.
last week.
We're not talking about that.
So you don't want to fix it.
No.
Mr. President, this may be something that would have been better served in public forum, and maybe the next public forum would be the best place to bring this up.
Yes, if you'd like to bring it up, please come to the next public forum and you'll have 3 minutes to blast.
3 minutes.
Well, you know, if it's like a shorter meeting.
We've heard your resume 3 times tonight. I don't want to hear any more of that either.
Okay, Catherine, I'm sorry.
Perhaps I'm missing something, but to me, if you have responsibility, then you also have to be informed. And the town charter, under the town council, authorities and responsibilities, it says the town council shall have the authority to appoint and remove all town employees. Appoint and remove. And I've heard various people mention we can accept or not accept, but it's a blind acceptance or not acceptance if you don't have the resumes and if you haven't had the opportunity to listen in on the interview process. So personally, again, I feel like if you have authority, you have commensurate responsibility, and the responsibility is to make an informed decision. And without listening in, how can you decide if you like or don't? And I don't think it's even a good word, like or don't like, but to assess the qualifications. Again, maybe I'm missing something. To me, it just seems common sense. If you have the authority to make a decision, you have the responsibility to make an informed decision. And in going by the way you're all talking, to me, it just seems like, why does the town council even have the appointing or removing obligation and just leave it all to the town administrator? But that's not what the charter says. So again, to me, if you have a responsibility, if you have the authority, you have a responsibility to make an informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine, I'm sorry. Sir.
Chris Kona, Richmond, Rhode Island. I appreciate the council is bringing this up. I think it's Having seen the result of the last referendum, I agree, Mark, or President Trimmer, with your comments that this transcends the bureaucratic language that's in the specific wording and reflects the will of the people of the town of Richmond to try to create a more professional town. I think in addition to the language that you talked about, I'm glad that you're reconsidering the inclusion of breaking out department heads separate from non-department heads, because I think there is an importance in having the town council be informed on what the department head selections are. I would invite you, as you consider that, to revisit some of the language in that last sentence if it's applied to non-department heads. Since the language about the town council being able to select an applicant of their own choice may be problematic for the procedures for non-department head selections. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, do you concur with what he said regarding the wording?
No, not necessarily. I think that it's clear that you should have the authority not only to appoint the person who's recommended, but another person who is not recommended but equally qualified in your judgment. But I'm also concerned about the comment that was made earlier about not disclosing the names of candidates other than the one that's recommended. I'm not exactly sure what the implications of that would be. So I would like some more information about that. If you want me to give you a new draft. What my suggestion is that you continue this to the next agenda, and I will give you a new draft with the changes that you have suggested. And I will do a little bit more research about that issue of keeping the names of the other candidates confidential.
Right. I mean, I personally know of someone that I hired. Someone that I interviewed was actually fired because somehow it got back to his employer that I interviewed him for a job. And they fired him immediately. And so I would not want that to happen. Go ahead.
Right, just to clarify, because I was the one that made that comment. My concern would be is kind of exactly what you said, is if we don't want to hire person A, and we hire person B, well, we don't hire person B, but person B is suggested publicly, but doesn't have the votes, only gets 2. So that person now didn't get the job. Their boss now knows they applied for this job, and that can just put them in a tricky situation. Does that help clarify? Yeah. Like there's another point I want to take. Oh, I think that also, I just like to stress that I want to get this done in one shot. So I'd like to see department head positions and non-department head director positions just at the same time, so we can have one discussion about it and try to move forward.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that would be a subject section.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so if we could push this down the line.
One meeting to the next meeting.
One meeting to solve both non-department heads and department heads and modify wording. So that being said, I'm going to ask for a vote to push it down the line.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries.
I just asked who the second was on the.
I was.
On the next agenda item, we have a request from Councilor Colasanti for discussion and consideration of creating a policy to send notice to landowners and any potential changes discussed regarding regulations, ordinances, land use at the beginning of the discussion phase throughout the process in order to solicit their participation and input. This would apply to the town council, town planner, planning board, or any other town official body or body that has authority to begin such a process. So before I ask Mike to further explain, I thought we had a policy to do something like this already.
We do for public, all the butters are notified at public hearing.
Okay.
So,
Mr. President, that's why I put this on the agenda, because it was kind of like a misnomer during the APOD discussion that the large landowners were waiting with bated breath about, the APOD being passed so that way they could spend their hard-earned money on getting their developments done. And that was actually farthest from the truth. And a couple of residents brought up a very good point, but again, they weren't educated on the whole process of why it got to that point. Where these couple of residents got up and said, where are the business owners? Where are these big landowners? They had all this time, all right, to get involved in the process. So as far as we're concerned, they missed the boat. Now, let's back it up a little bit. These large landowners that a lot of people around this table said we're waiting with bated breath, had no idea what was going on with the APOD. They were brought in at the tail end.
I have to interrupt you because I have to put this in that I had conversations with these developers.
Mr. Chairman, I know you're the president, but you know something, you're not letting me finish my statement. You have a right to respond to my statement as soon as I'm done.
It's not an opinion.
It's not
an opinion.
It's my agenda item. Let me finish without being.
I just want to
interrupted.
input that information is not true, that I spoke with the developers for the Richmond Commons, the GFI, and another developer, and they stated that they were looking for closure on this, that they did not get caught not knowing what was going on. So that being said, go ahead.
Okay, Mr. President, both Councilor Sheen and I were at a meeting with the three bodies of GSI, GFI, and Dave DeAmber and Paul from the Preserve. We had a meeting. Whatever you discussed with them, it was totally erroneous to what they said to us at this meeting. They had no idea. And as a matter of fact, I have letters right here from William Buckley, from GFI, and from Dave DeAmber. I want to read these into the minutes of the meeting, so that way you people understand that they did not know about what was going on with the APOD till the very end. This is Mr. DeAmber. Says, Mike, I wish I could come to tonight to show my support for your proposal, but I have a family obligation. I am in support of the advance notice to properties affected by proposed zone changes. This property was a lifelong investment by my father for his family, not only for the currently operating business, but for future allowed land uses as well. Our whole business activity is aimed at shaping the property for its eventual highest and best use. If that were to change, it could throw off the economics of years of costly land improvement we have carried out since taking ownership in 2009. You have the okay to speak for me in support of this. William Buckley from GFI. Thank you for reaching out and sharing your request for consideration by the town council. We appreciate the work that you and the members of the town council do to support business growth in the community, and we look forward to working with all land use officials in town on a plan for a site on Kingstown Road. Notice to participate in discussion for any potential changes to land use policy is appreciated and helps us plan for any new regulations or ordinances that may affect our site. Without knowing the specifics or language of a new policy and how it could be implemented, the concept of early notice and open communication is something we would support as property owners. Now, they wrote these letters because they had no idea that the planning board over a year ago was starting discussion on change of the APOD regulations. They didn't find out about what was going on till the tail end. And this was a meeting I had with them. They had no idea. And somebody in GFI said to me when I said that basically their council members and the town planner said you were well informed. And his exact words were, "That's bullshit," unquote. So with that being said, I have two letters from two of the major landowners that would like to see this policy in place, that at the inception of any discussion that they be made aware of. And if they don't come, then that's their fault. But they have to be made aware of any potential changes, because it's a bait and switch kind of deal.
So I have one question or one favor to ask of you. Okay. Here we are again at a meeting distributing information.
I just
When-
got these today.
Okay,
I
when,
just got these.
if at all possible, would you be able to get these to the town the town clerk in advance?
Mr. President, I give you my word that if in the future I was to get these even a day in advance, I would give you the copies to the clerk, and then she could disseminate them through electronic media to you. But these over here I just received today, 3 hours ago, and this one was 5 hours ago.
So for what it's worth, I support your agenda item.
Thank you.
And I supported it prior to the statements that I made. I just felt that you were, a lot of times when you have a great idea, but you impugn somebody in the process of putting that great idea forward, and it riles people up and you don't get the cooperation that you want to get because you decide to impugn somebody's being a liar, being
Mr. President,
underhanded or
thank
what
you.
have you.
I appreciate that compliment. And I would like to, at the inception of sitting here, at my age, I didn't want to have contention. But you know something, unfortunately, even at my age, some people have awoken the sleeping giant that brought out the toughness in me that I didn't want to bring to this council chamber. So if people don't lie to me, they're not going to get that kind of response. And prior to me coming up with this idea, I was lied to, and these business owners were lied to. That's it. If people stop lying and stop being deceitful, then you won't get that response.
Okay, that'd be,
With the
sure,
current practices.
sure, please.
The Open Meetings Act requires every public body to post an agenda before each meeting. The planning board never discusses any potential amendment to any ordinance or regulation unless it is included as an agenda item on the agenda, which is posted publicly on the website, on the Secretary of State's website in advance, at least 48 hours. If the suggestion is that anytime an amendment like the Aquifer Protection Overlay District amendments, which affected more than half of the town, every time one of those is first discussed, that individual notice be given to every property owner.
Exactly.
I would say that you would probably have to add $60,000 annually to the budget.
To send down an email.
No, you would have to send mail notices, and you would have to hire another secretary to notify every property owner. First, you would have to get somebody to go on the GIS system and find the names and addresses of the property owners. You would have to continually send notices all year to probably half of the town. And that would require having another clerical employee.
Mr. President,
Please let her finish.
That's.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to make
Go
sure that
ahead.
after she was done, I could go.
Okay, go ahead.
That was exactly what my questions were gonna be about this proposal, is what he thought the estimated cost would be. Because we can't just send an email. This is a legal notice. So if somebody comes back later and says, I didn't get it.
Yeah, it's gotta be
You
a
want,
registered
you want a
matter.
signature, you want it certified, that's $8.50 at the lowest weight per house, per person, per landowner, and that can just add up. So I thought the phrase throughout the process was also a little vague, because then it's like, when does this new hire clerk that we have doing this send these out? So, I mean, it's great to want to inform people. That's what we want to do, but I'm just thinking at what cost. And also wondering why, if we are just sending an email, if you want email notifications, please go on the town hall website or the Secretary of State's website and sign up. You can get them for all the boards you want, or you don't have to sign up for anything if you don't want anything. So if you care about what the planning board's doing, Secretary of State, sign up.
Mr. President.
That's it.
Sure.
Excuse me.
Go
Mr.
ahead.
President, regards to something like this, it wasn't 4,000 people that would have had to be notified about this. Because when you look at the APART amendments that were passed, it's really, when you look at the map, when you look at these land mass, most of it is owned by 4 to 5 major landowners. Give them the opportunity to be in the process of this right from the very beginning. And it's not going to take much for the town planner to implement something like this, where these major landowners are going to be affected.
So I'm
I
wondering if,
respectfully disagree. with that.
Yeah, I have a question.
It's not factual.
okay,
Right.
can you explain?
Yes, these amendments involve the property in more than half of the town. That's not 3 or 4 big landowners. That's a lot of people. That's small businesses. That's home-based businesses. You just want to talk about businesses? That's not 3 or 4 people. We had people from the very beginning of that discussion who owned non-residential property contact the planning department and say, can you tell me what's going on with that ordinance? And they came to many of the meetings. Mr. Ligori, who testified at the public hearing, has a client who owns property on Stilson Road. He was at almost every planning board meeting at which the amendments were discussed. And he made some very helpful suggestions along the way. So it's not impossible for somebody who owns property that's going to be affected by an ordinance like that to know what's going on and to participate. We provide all of the public notice that's required by law. And sometimes we provide more.
Is there a way that certain large invested businesses in the town could be maybe notified or encouraged to sign up? You mentioned the emails, to sign up for the emails that they would get and things like that. I mean, myself, the gentleman from GFI, the gentleman from Richmond Commons, both seem like very, very accomplished, very, very intelligent business owners. I would think that they would, if they knew about this process, would sign up for notifications and emails and wouldn't require a special mass mailing or, additional.
Anyone
certified.
can do that. We have a public registry that's required by state law. All you have to do is contact the building, zoning and planning clerk, and she puts your name and email address on the public registry, and you get whatever notifications you request.
Okay, then we can do that and initially just put everybody in the system.
No, they have to ask first. We don't have their contact information.
Well, we do have a lot of the contact information for the major landowners.
If you would like to provide it to the clerk, I'm sure she will put it all on the registry.
We have to come up with a good streamlined way of notifying these folks about any potential changes
I think
to
that
their
would-
land use
That would require additional clerical assistance.
initially. But these people, I mean, really hold, the future of this town in their hands. Because it's all that land off the interstate that if it gets developed and developed properly, is going to alleviate a lot of tax burden to these folks in town. So either pay me now or pay me later. If you were to tell me, Mike, invest $10 and I'll give you back 1,000, all right, in 30 days, you wouldn't have to ask me twice. So
I can't speak for Sean, but I'm fairly certain that he was in touch with the people from GFI
He was.
a long time before the public hearing on APOD. The preserve was notified the previous year. They were at probably 3/4 of the meetings.
They were involved in the amendment.
Yes.
I know, I notified
Yes.
Paul. of
Yeah, no,
those
we
changes.
notified Paul.
And I
Yeah.
did too. I talked to Paul even back then. But just the fact that you made accommodations to Paul about the APART, the new APART amendments. Paul got on board and said, whoa, wait a minute, time out. And you gave him already exemptions to that.
No, we
So-
didn't. We discussed what his problems were and we adjusted the
You
language.
accommodated, right, you accommodated him.
There
So
were other
now-
property owners who were in the same situation, who were also watching the entire procedure.
But my point is, Karen, if you don't mind, Mr. President. if
Yeah, I
it's the
think
next
we're
best thing
laborer.
since- No, it's not. If it was the next best thing since sliced bread, then why did Paul push to get that language in there to make sure that he
Because
didn't
he
get
didn't
caught with his
understand
pants
the
down?
first drafts of the ordinances. That's
So, with that being said, I just wanted to rope this in with a comment that we have an EDC in town. And unfortunately, there hasn't been much produced from the EDC as of yet. This would be an excellent opportunity to use the EDC to our advantage. The EDC could get a listing together of the large investors in the town. And the EDC could work with those large investors to help them invest more, to help them be involved in the planning and zoning process early on. And I mean, we have the most active and largest EDC that we've ever had. We have a new person we just swore in tonight. This would be an ideal opportunity so that we don't have to hire another clerk. We don't have to set out a $9 a piece certified letter, that the EDC can interface with these developers and
Mr. President,
work with them.
I think that's a good idea. As a matter of fact, there is an EDC representative here, and if it's so, the president so chooses, just what do you think about that idea? And I'm saying this to the president here.
Please, yeah, please. Yeah, please. And I'm also going to ask Mark Reynolds to come up because he had expressed earlier.
I'm a representative of the Economic Development Commission. We're just waiting for to really some direction from the town council. We did make a presentation earlier this spring. I'm sure that we would be delighted to work with the town council in interfacing with those business owners, if that's how you direct us, moving forward.
Well, I wanted to know if you felt that was within the purview and capabilities of it.
I can't speak for, there's 5 other people, on the EDC, but I would be willing to take that direction from the town council myself, as one member, but I can't speak for everybody.
Right. I mean, the EDC is, the primary goal of the EDC is economic development, and that, and you as a council would act as a liaison between the town and these developers that Mike is working with.
If that was the expressed direction of the town council to the EDC, then I'm sure that we would respect that direction from the town council.
Right, the other, since you're up there and we're talking about EDC and direction and the town council, the last I knew, we turned over a block grant proposal that Samantha had
Point of order.
initiated.
Sorry, that's not on the agenda. I really don't want us to go down here.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
good enough. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mark.
Kind of covered it, but you called me up.
Just you being an attorney and you being involved in the charter, et cetera, et cetera.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
interested in what you
yeah,
have to say.
not so much a legal comment or a charter comment, but the one thing I did, I guess this is kind of legal. One thing I did kind of cringe at is that we're carving out, well, let's just give notice to the large business owners. Let's just notify this group of people. We should be, it's about messaging, and I think that was your suggestion, President Trimmer. Maybe better messaging from the EDC or from the town's website. Listen, this is a big ordinance amendment that's up for public hearing or that's being considered by the planning board. It's about just general messaging from the town, or whether it's through the EDC, if they develop a mailing list of business owners who want to be notified of initiatives that would be of interest to them, they can do that. But we don't have to set up a procedure requiring a certified letter go to every landowner who might possibly be affected. And I know it's just an agenda item, but it's so broad, it could be anything. So I think it's about messaging. So that was the one thing. I think you want to get the word out to everybody. And if someone is looking to develop their property, they are going to be subscribing to get every agenda for the planning board. It's, as Ms. Wilcox said, it's very simple. You sign up with the Secretary of State, and every time there's an agenda posted by whatever board it is. So if it's the planning board, you get an email from the Secretary of State. Agenda posted, and you can go in and you can actually look at the agenda. So it's very easy if you want to, it's very easy to monitor these things. But I do agree, better messaging, more information is better, but I think we can do it in a more general way than sending out initial certified.
Mr. President,
Thank you, Mark.
I like what Mark just said. Thank you very much. You put a real great spin on it. And it wasn't my intent just to, get the big landowners. I would like to see everybody. So with your positive comments, I think they're great. I'd like to make a motion to have the Economic Development Committee look into this and discuss it and come back with a recommendation to the town council.
I was gonna ask you if you would like to, because I know you attend the EDC meetings. And I was gonna ask you if you'd like to table this particular agenda item and work with the EDC to come up with a plan to work.
Well,
Just hold on.
I think, Mr. President, what a member of the committee just said, they're looking for some directive. So if we can at least, pass that motion to give them a directive, then when I sit down with them, we have, a definitive directive to work on. I don't want to leave it open-ended because they're going to say, well,
Right.
what is the town
Right.
council?
Okay.
That's my idea behind doing that.
Right, exactly. I also don't want to leave it open-ended, which is why I was thinking more of a direction. Would be better in place, like if we were to ask them to develop, reach out to people or businesses that may be interested in signing up for the Secretary of State's notifications and just start there. Just to see what happens
Right.
and see if that's something they'd be willing to help us do.
That would be a good first step, and I'd also like to add to that direction that Mike's suggestion that the EDC do some of this notifying instead of a town clerk or another hired employee.
Right. I think they have like a $600 budget. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Right.
So they can't exactly be sending $8.50 certified meals to everybody.
No,
But maybe we could task them with finding an actual cost analysis to this and seeing how much it would cost the taxpayers to be notified.
yeah,
I mean, I think if they did an educational campaign about the fact that they
Yeah.
can get it on the Secretary of State's website and they can get it from the town's website.
Then we
I
wouldn't
think
need
that we
registered
should
letter.
The expense of the letter.
right. I thoroughly agree. Myself, I have a $425,000 house in Richmond, and I keep up on things. If I owned a couple of $1 million worth of property, I would be logging on websites every day.
So, Mr. President,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it in a form of a motion to ask the EDC to work.
Right here. it is.
Oh, I didn't realize it was seconded.
We don't have a second.
Oh. What was the motion?
Motion was to instruct the EDC committee to sit down and formulate a game plan in notifying business owners of any potential land use changes. And pretty simple.
Yep.
Can I add to that, looking for a way other than an $8 or $9
Yes.
a month per person mailing?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And do you second that?
Mhm.
So any further discussion? Going once, going twice. How do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Last was request for Councilor Colasanti for discussion and consideration, creating a policy for the town council to be involved, etc. I think we discussed this.
It's a wood issue at this point, sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
And so communications petitions,
President, motion to file.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, now, we've got item number L, which is executive session.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to enter to executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A1 regarding Karen Finch job performance. The person whose job performance is being discussed has been notified by mail that this executive session is taking place.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, refuse.
Aye.
Okay. That being said, we move to executive session.
Get it adjourned?
We can't adjourn.
Meeting's over.
Yeah.
Getting to it early.
Well, everybody's been.
And video of that.
Okay.
That's why I bring it, because everybody's so nice. We appreciate it. I know. Went to the house party, and Steve said, he wasn't there. Rose, and I can't remember her name. Did you get the cues from Chocolate Kisses? She goes, no, probably wasn't here. I said, "Well, here's something." Let's go. Tell the boys that they keep cheering.
Okay, meeting comes back to order. You need a motion to return to.
Motion to return to open session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
How do you vote?
Aye.
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 Recused, okay. Now I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to seal the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have a motion to seal the minutes?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Recuse.
Aye.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.